to CC, the Classic Car Show. In this episode, we go for a cruise in this incredible road yacht that has been looked after like no car we have seen before. We challenge you to another Know Your Chrome to see if you really know your classic cars. Also on the show, a small but impressive English sports car with a famous reputation. Plus, we find a classic of tomorrow, a collection of Jags, and what do you do when you have a classic car? Drive it, of course. So relax in your comfy chair, put your feet up, and imagine you're driving for the next half hour in CC Classic Cars. In the late 1950s, a group of designers and engineers at Chevrolet envisioned the concept of a prestige car that was within the reach of the average American citizen. The car that embodied this vision came to be known as the Chevrolet Impala. First rolling off the production lines in 1958, the Impala, known as the Bel Air Impala, was a move away from previously conservative car designs to a more sleek and impressive style. It was a move that cemented Chevrolet as one of America's most desirable cars. This was an era of fast-changing tastes and styles. Car designers were looking to the future with ever-increasing imagination, ensuring the evolution of the Impala was a rapid one. From the classic 58 styling with fat grills and high fins, to the sleek lower designs of the early 60s, where fins were on the way out, and the bold, sleek, late 60s design we see here. It was a car that oozed style and class, and with its modern look and sporty trim, captured the attention of auto enthusiasts all over the world. For many, one look was all they needed to decide the Impala was the car for them.
I first fell in love with the Chevy Impala many years ago, where a family member had acquired one when I was younger, and I always wanted one myself, and I was lucky enough to find one 18 years ago through the Unique Cars magazine. Went over there and had a look at it, and it was fantastic, exactly what I wanted.
With millions sold and demand mounting up, Chevrolet rolled out the improved Impala SS the next year. And with the intention of outperforming Ford's 390 CID engine, introduced its own 409 cubic inch power plant, which cemented the Impala's place not just as a great prestige car, but a damn good performance vehicle as well. If you're thinking of hunting down your own Impala, there are a couple of drawbacks you'll need to consider. First is the fuel bill. Like many American cars of the time, fuel efficiency was not top of the list when the Chevrolet engineers designed this vehicle. You have been warned. Another negative are the brakes, or lack of them. These cars weigh about 3 tons, so you need to allow plenty of stopping time when you're on the road, as the drum brake design in these relics are nowhere near as efficient as the discs in modern cars. Like any classic car, no matter how careful you drive, there is the threat of an accident causing irreparable damage.
If we were ever unlucky enough to have a crash in this car, it's probably pretty difficult to find original replacement parts for it. Most of these cars are quite heavily rusted, but they are available. It might take a little bit of sourcing interstate or overseas to acquire the original parts, but I'm quite sure you'd be able to find them.
Of course, it's not all bad. As a matter of fact, for a car that's fast approaching the half-century mark, the Chevrolet Impala is still reliable, dependable transport, and many Impalas are used as daily drivers in the US. And if you think driving a classic car is a step down in the comfort you're used to, the Impala might just be the car for you. The Impala is a luxurious ride, with more space than you can imagine. Most optional extras in cars today were standard on the Impala, as this car was all about comfortable motoring for drivers and passengers.
The difference between the Bel Air and the Impala was that the Impala was a top-of-the-range model, a little bit more luxurious on the interior, air conditioning, power windows on some of the models, and larger motor as well. So it was looked upon as the top-of-the-range Chevy for its era.
thing we have to talk about when we look at this Chevrolet Impala. This car has never been in an accident, has never been resprayed, and every major part on this car is the same one it rolled out of the factory with. This car is a rare find, and a lucky find too. It shows the importance of looking long and hard before buying a classic car. If you bide your time, search out and expect every car you might be interested in, and be ready to buy when you find what you want. You may well score an original classic that has been looked after as well as this amazing example. It even has its original spare wheel and tyre. If you do find a classic like this Impala, all you have to do is give it the same care and attention it has always had. Drive it carefully and get another spare to use if you get a flat, because that original spare is definitely a classic.
The best thing about this vehicle is that it is all original. It has never been restored. It's very hard to find cars of this age in original condition. They class them as survivor cars, and it's very, very, very hard to find something like this. So that's why it's so special to me. It takes a lot of looking after. We don't drive it very often, but when we do, we make sure we take good care of it.
Here's a challenge for all you classic car fans. Know Your Chrome gives you a peek at some close-ups of classic chrome. Look at the shapes. Do you recognise the lines? Can you tell which car sports this shiny styling? It's too early for clues, but we can tell you it's a car, it's a classic, and it's very, very cool. Look closely, and we'll give you more hints later in the show. Next on CC, the Classic Car Show. Classic car fans get together, a classic of tomorrow, and a classic birthday celebration. What do you do when you have a classic car? Well, drive it, of course. And one of the best ways to enjoy your classic car is to join a car club and travel the roads with other like-minded drivers so you can really enjoy your vehicle. We tagged along to a classic car run to see just what a run is all about and how much fun it can be sharing your passion of classic motoring on the move. At a designated time, late one Friday afternoon, cars started to arrive in this car park to gather for a run into the hills. For this run, numbers were a little down as the weather was extremely hot. Having said that, there was still a nice selection of classic vehicles and some rare finds as well. These people love to drive their classics, so it's no walk in the park.
The type of cars that we're travelling with this afternoon are classic cars, and that means basically built after World War II and up to about 30 years of age. A lot of them are British sports cars, but there's some German sports cars as well. We have MGs, Triumphs, there's several TR6s, some E-Type Jags. My car is an MGB Roadster. There's some modern cars as well. Some people prefer the air conditioning in their modern cars on a hot afternoon like today. And of course the classic cars do suffer from overheating on a warm afternoon like today.
There were no signs of overheating when we caught up with these machines winding through the hills. A wonderful way to experience classic cars at their best, a run is not only entertaining for both drivers and passengers, but for passers-by and other road users. It's not often we see a car like the spectacular Lancia Flaminia out and about, let alone cruising the winding roads at considerable speed. Or this Lotus Europa Special, which we love so much we did a feature on it. This yellow MG Roadster is a force all of its own, with a bunch of extra power squeezed in under the hood. If you really love classic cars, a car club can be a great way to fuel your passion. Most classic car clubs will happily take in members who don't actually own a classic car. This is often the best way to learn about the cars, get an opportunity to ride in them, and most importantly, be in the word-of-mouth circle. So when a classic car comes up for sale that suits your needs, you might just be in the right place at the right time. The best thing about a car club is you're sharing your love of classic motoring with other classic car lovers. These people will talk for hours about classics, so you won't need to bore your mates with their classic car stories.
Well, I've always loved motor cars, and a classic car is something that I relate to from when I was young. I always wanted to own a sports car when I was young, and now I have the opportunity, now that my children have grown up, that I can enjoy with my wife, some open-top motoring, and enjoy other people's enjoyment of classic cars.
Back in the 1960s, there was an unlikely car that, beyond all expectations, made a massive impact on the motoring world, from sales to sports. Its mass appeal and impressive performance ensured it would forever go down in the annals of car history as a classic. This car was the Mini, and production of the original line ceased completely in the year 2000. BMW owned the brand by then and announced a new Mini, known as the BMW Mini to many, and we think it will continue in the tradition of its earlier models and become a classic of tomorrow. Although the new model Minis ooze the characteristics of the original cars, there is little else to compare between the vehicles. A much larger vehicle than its name implies, the Minis of the new millennium are much safer than their old-style counterparts. The reason the cars are larger is due to the crash protection. Most noticeable is the height difference. The BMW Mini is almost twice the height of the old flying brick. What we think makes these cars classics of tomorrow is the styling. Just like the original, the Mini is a car where style comes first, followed by practicality. And buyers of the new Mini will also make this choice, and we think that's the first step to becoming a classic. There are several body styles of the Mini, from the hardtop to the convertible, and even new Cooper S releases. Obviously, just like the heritage models, the Cooper S cars are the most collectible and will be the cars to look out for in the future. Sure, you're not sitting on the road, you don't feel like you're driving a go-kart, and it doesn't have the same feeling of flying low down on the road like the old Minis have. But it does stand out in a market where every car seems to look the same. That's why we think the new Minis in all their forms will be classic cars of tomorrow. It's not unusual to see a classic Jaguar on the road, a luxury car maker that really hit its stride in the 1960s and 70s. Jaguars are famous for their distinct and unique styling. Many people don't realise that Jaguar have a long and respected history in performance cars, and some classic Jaguars have to be seen to be believed. In 2010, Jaguar celebrated their 75th birthday. Not bad for a boutique car builder, especially considering the companies he left in its wake. So what does a company like Jaguar do to celebrate this milestone? They throw a party and invite a collection of rare classic Jaguar sports cars to the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. The Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance is an automotive charitable event held each year at Pebble Beach in California. It is considered the most prestigious automotive event of its type in the world. Never before had such a collection of classic Jaguars gathered together for people to appreciate these wonderful cars. In 1955, Jaguar withdrew from racing. 25 cars were left in the factory complete or near completion. 9 of these vehicles were destroyed in a factory fire that same year. The remaining cars were converted to road-going vehicles with minor modifications and sold exclusively mostly in the US. 12 of the 16 Jaguar XKSS sports cars ever built were reunited at Pebble Beach. The reunion is believed to be the largest ever gathering of XKSS cars, and it featured as its own special class at the concourse. A true collector's car, the XKSS vehicles are not only rare, they often have a story of their own. Like this British racing green model, owned by Hollywood tough guy and racing fan Steve McQueen. And he's not the only Hollywood star that's a fan.
There's a lot of great cars in the world, but Jaguar has always made the best looking cars. You know, in fact, a lot of the British cars were really sharp looking, but the Jaguar always had great design.
Not everybody likes the lines of the sports cars from the late 50s and early 60s. One has to agree though, that these very rare and very sporty Jaguars really do have a special presence on the road and would turn heads wherever they go. Not unusual for a car company that has based its business for 75 years on innovative design.
Marking 75 years, it's 75 years of great cars, beautiful fast cars, but it's really all about 75 years of looking forward. It's 75 years of innovative design, 75 years of race cars, 75 years of some of the most evocative cars, and we're looking to the next 75, I've got to tell you.
So how well did you go with your first peek? How well did you know your chrome? Here's a quick update. Did you guess it right away, or are you still pondering? Take a look at these shots. We're showing you a little more of the car here, so you should be able to pick it. The answer is coming soon. Next on CC, Classic Cars, we take a look at a very special British road racer and reveal the Know Your Chrome mystery car. Colin Chapman, the founder of Lotus, is famous for his often stated philosophy of automotive design. Simplify, then add lightness. And the Europa was designed and built to be an embodiment of this approach. When the car launched in the 60s, critics at the time described the Europa as the nearest thing to a Formula car for the road. In fact, the Europa was the first mass-produced mid-engine road car. So when Adam Sellers saw an original Europa special for sale in a magazine, he knew he just had to go for it.
Well, this car, it found me. I've always had an interest in cars, Lotuses, Lamborghinis, all sorts. But I think the midlife crisis hit, and friends suggested to me when I saw the ad in a magazine about the end of 2006 that you're never going to get the opportunity again. So he'd just got a new job with a car, and we drove over to Victoria and had a look, and yeah, it was instant.
This is a 1972 Lotus Europa Special, a special edition that paid homage to the successful Lotus Formula One team of the day and their sponsor, John Player Special. With the exception of a modern radio, the car has been kept true to its original condition, and only Lotus spares have been used throughout the vehicle's life. In fact, the previous owner passed on meticulous notes on the vehicle's service history, which Adam plans to continue.
I've traced the history of the car. I'm the fifth owner, but the third driver. The first owner apparently worked for Lotus and built it. But he owned it for 18 months, and then the next gentleman owned it for 28 years. I've actually contacted him, and he posted me out some notes and some manuals for it. And I thought, I'm going to keep this going. And I've kept all receipts. I know all the history of the car. I've got a folder full of stuff about the originality of this car.
A documented history will certainly add value to your classic car, if you plan to keep it original. In addition to a complete set of documents, this car has been personally signed by Ron Hickman, OBE, a key car designer at Lotus and highly influential in the design of the Europa. The vehicle was designed by the legendary British car designer and founder of Lotus, Colin Chapman, and it's no surprise the car is so light that it doesn't need loads of horsepower to achieve its impressive performance. The great thing about these cars is that they are really easy to restore, as most parts come from the British Motor Company parts bin. Classic car aficionados will recognise the front end comes from a Triumph Spitfire. The rear lights have been borrowed from a Jaguar E-Type, and the front bumper has been taken from a Ford Anglia. Something that is probably more common now in car manufacture than it was then. Body rust shouldn't be a problem too, as the shell of the car is made from fiberglass. Of course, this makes the vehicle extremely light. And when we say light, we mean a real lightweight, weighing in at only 700 kilograms. Combined with its 126 horsepower twin-cam engine, the car has a very impressive power-to-weight ratio. In many ways, driving this Lotus is just like driving a motorised go-kart. It sticks to the road and takes corners extremely well. Lotus vehicles have always been praised for their excellent handling. Back in the 70s, these cars were considered a supercar, alongside Ferrari and Lamborghini. This was largely due to Lotus's success in motor racing and the Europa's exceptional acceleration and handling. With a drag coefficient of just 0.29, which was one of the lowest of any vehicle of the time, and its high power to weight ratio, the Lotus Europa could accelerate from 0 to 100 in just 6.6 seconds. Quite phenomenal for a road car of the day. Early models sported Renault motors and transmissions, but in 1971 the company replaced these with Ford twin-cam engines in response to strict emission controls in the US. This Europa Special is powered by one of these big valued twin-cam engines. It doesn't look much, but it goes like the clappers. And how much would it cost to find yourself in the driver's seat of a Lotus Europa Special? It's hard to quantify an exact figure, as only 100 of these particular models were built. Restored twin-cam Europas are fetching about $50,000 US, or about £30,000, and originals can be picked up for about half that cost. As for the limited release specials, we imagine they would fetch a premium price. So of all the great classics available, why did Adam go for a Lotus Europa?
I've always been interested in sports cars. As a kid, the Special was one. The Miura, Lamborghini Miura, was a bit out of my price range, but this suited me quite well. You know, it's my midlife crisis.
So how well did you know your Chrome? If you said it was an Aston Martin DBS 6, you'd be right. Built in the UK from 1967 to 1972, the car was made famous in the James Bond film On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Based on the DB6, the DBS had the same straight-six engine, but was a larger car to accommodate full-size seats in the back for more passenger comfort. Everybody seems to love classic cars. Not everybody wants to own one, but most of us appreciate the artistry that classic cars offer. Whether it's low, sleek sports machines, big road behemoths oozing chrome, or just something that brings back loads of childhood memories, there is a classic car to suit anybody and everybody. Own a rolling work of art like these vehicles from the past, you just can't afford to miss CC. Classic Cars.